The other day I got one of those random Google News prompts on my phone, and I usually ignore them, but this one really piqued my interest. It said that due to the release of the M2 Mac Studio, a store called Argos here in the UK was selling off their original stock of M1 Mac Studio base models for a mere £1,500, a whopping saving of £500 on the original price. So I went to their website and sure enough it was true, and if you're thinking of doing the same, don't bother, because they've all gone and I'm not surprised. And to really emphasise just how good this Argos deal was, the next best offer for a brand new M1 Mac Studio was £350 more from John Lewis & Partners. So for a few fleeting moments, the Argos deal really was the best deal in new, old tech. So you're probably asking yourselves, did I go ahead and buy a Mac Studio from Argos? Well, sadly no. That's because sanity took hold and I realised that all I need right now is my 14-inch MacBook Pro. Or do I? The more I thought about it, the more I realised that if the M1 Mac Studio had come out a few months before the 14-inch MacBook Pro, I probably would have gone for this as my daily driver. Primarily that's because I just don't do any travelling at the moment, and the only time I've ever taken my 14-inch MacBook Pro out of the house is when I had to do a presentation at night class I'm doing right now. So gradually, particularly as I do a lot of 4K video editing right now for this YouTube channel, it has dawned on me that even if the M1 Mac Studio used doesn't come in a minty fresh box, it is still the best deal in tech. After all, the base model Mac Studio has the groundbreaking M1 chip, 32GB of RAM, 512MB of memory, and a whole host of ports that we know and love, including, hallelujah, an SD card slot. And it powers through every single creative task, from Photoshop, or Affinity in my case, to 4K video editing without breaking a sweat, in ninja-like silence, and without ever overheating. Now, glancing at eBay and second-hand tech stores in the UK, I still came up with prices ranging from £1,400 to £1,600, and with the release of the M2 Mac Studio, these prices are only going to drop further in the coming year. Then something else happened this week that gave me a pang of regret at not going for the Mac Studio deal. I was editing some 4K video on my 14-inch MacBook Pro, and I uploaded a really large 4K file. Now, I don't normally do this, but all of a sudden my 14-inch MacBook Pro started to struggle. And it got me thinking that if I ever do need to do this again, then the 14-inch MacBook Pro does have its limitations. And as Clint Eastwood famously said, a man's got to know his limitations. With all the excitement of the M2 release, when it comes down to it, I'm not sure that my workflow would ever even notice the difference between the original Mac Studio and the M2 Mac Studio. So latest doesn't necessarily mean the best for your particular creative needs. Now, I have to admit that up until now, one used piece of kit I have never bought is a second-hand computer. I've bought microphones, mice, keyboards, everything else, but never once a second-hand computer. Now, why is that? Because I think I still hold on to this slightly irrational fear that a second-hand computer will be inherently unreliable. I have that thing in my head which is always saying, well, if this computer's so good, why did they sell it anyway? But it might also be because this YouTube channel that I'm trying very hard to grow, and indeed my paid work as a professional voiceover artist, rely on me having a fast and reliable computer. However, about 6 months ago, my wife bought a used M1 base model Mac Mini. It came with a 24-month guarantee, it was absolutely in pristine condition, and she has never had a problem with it. And having come from an old Intel MacBook Air, she was, of course, amazed by the power, speed, and silence of this machine. As you know, I'm all in with Apple, but before the arrival of the M1 chip, I would never have considered buying a used computer. Now, I'm painfully aware that times are tough at the moment, and people are thinking of every single penny that they spend and how they spend it. But if, like me, you're really into Apple computers, then I think there really has never been a better time to buy a second-hand machine. And don't forget that most of the M1 models out there are 3 years old or less, so they have years more life in them, and don't forget Apple updates. Now, the whole point of a tech channel like this is to supposedly tell you about the latest and greatest gear, and then you make your mind up about how you want to part with your hard-earned cash. But I do think it would be a bit remiss of me and discourteous not to tell you about the best second-hand deals out there as well. It might not do me any favours with the YouTube algorithm, but I hope you appreciate it. But as usual, I'd like to know what you think. Whether you're a Mac or PC person, have you ever bought a used computer? Are you someone who never does anything else? Or like me, do you think that the M1 Mac Studio, even if it is used, really is the best deal in tech? Just let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.